there, and welcome to That Shakespeare Life. This is the channel where we go behind the curtain and into the real life and history of William Shakespeare with some tidbits from our podcast and just fun, random Shakespeare history things I like to explore. Today, we're going to be taking a look at what was it like to live on a ship in the 16th century. The first English voyage to the New World took place during Shakespeare's lifetime, and records from the trip showed that life on board was incredibly dangerous, was rife with disease, and conditions were just rough. They didn't have everything that you would think they needed or that they thought they needed. It also came with a high risk of just a general lack of lawlessness that existed on the ship. People were constantly threatening to mutiny, and so there was just really stiff penalties for any kind of suggestion that you weren't towing the line. Now, to explore exactly what the conditions would have been on board ship and learn about what it was like to take that first voyage to the New World with the East India Company, we sat down with our guest, Cheryl Fury, who is currently working on a book that covers the diet, disease, and disorder in the early East India Company. Here's what she had to say.
So many, and probably most of those who set sail from England never returned home. So one of the men wrote about the, quote, continual dangers we are subject unto in this painful employment. So the biggest killer was disease. So scurvy was a perennial problem, given that shipboard provisions were very deficient in vitamin C. There was a critic by the name of Robert Cale that blasted the company in a scathing pamphlet in 1615 for, among other things, depleting England of its skilled maritime labor. So he wrote that men do die extraordinarily in this voyage, and he compared the company's ships to coffins. Now, some historians have picked up on this, and they are also very critical of the company, saying that the East India Company was negligent of their employees. But I don't think that's the case at all. I think the company was trying to keep these men fit for purpose, but the odds were really stacked against that.
It's really amazing to me how high the death rates were for people sailing on ships with the East India Company, or one presumes sailing on ships with any company. Crossing the Atlantic in the 16th century was just a dangerous thing to undertake. With conditions so dire, it's a wonder anyone crossed the sea at all. If you would like to hear more about the first voyage of the East India Company, including more about the food and the doctors that were on board the ship, you can hear our entire conversation with Cheryl Fury completely free on the podcast right now. There's a link to that below this video. At that link, you'll not only be able to listen to our entire conversation, but I've also packed in some bonus history about the East India Company and additional links to great places you can start if you want to research this topic further. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.